The Biden campaign is increasingly turning to Hollywood A-listers to raise money and court voters, including the legendary Jane Fonda. She joined First Lady Jill Biden just last week at an event to rally support among seniors in Nevada. The actor and activist Jane Fonda is joining us now in the Situation Room. Jane, thanks so much for joining us. In your long career of activism, you tell me this is really the first time you've actively campaigned for a presidential candidate. So here's the question: why now and why Biden?
I would have probably done it earlier, but nobody asked. And why now? The elections in November are existential, really. Who wins in November is going to determine whether we have a livable future. It's as simple as that. And there's a very stark choice. It's not that I'm 100% happy with President Biden, but he's someone that we can work with, that American people can work with. If we can prove to him there's a problem, which is what happened recently when people from Texas and Louisiana went to Washington to tell him that they were getting sick and dying because of the presence of gas terminals and oil refineries poisoning their communities, he created a pause. It's not sexy, not front page news, but it's really important. That's the kind of man he is. If you show him the problem, if you touch his heart, he will act accordingly. And so, because I think that this election is so important, it's existential, I decided that I was going to throw in with the campaign.
So let me follow up, Jane. Is your support for President Biden more about supporting him or stopping Donald Trump?
It's a little of both. You know, I've known Joe Biden for a long time, and I was so happy to meet his wife, Jill, and work with her in Reno. We launched the Seniors for Biden-Harris, and it was so much fun, and it was so wonderful. I had never met her before. And there's a lot about President Biden that I really admire and respect and like. I'm primarily a climate activist. And, you know, I guess the best way that I can describe what will happen if the Orange Man is elected, as we know, because we read in the papers recently, he invited all the CEOs of the big oil companies to meet with him at Mar-a-Lago. And he basically said, if you give me $1 billion, I will cut all the climate regulations that you don't like, clean air, clean water, all these kind of things that really protect the American people. And that's why I really want to elect Joe Biden, because we're running out of time. I have grandchildren. I won't be around to see the worst of it, but we have to confront the climate crisis, and we have to do it fast.
At that event you were just referring to, Jane, that Seniors for Biden-Harris event that you attended, the First Lady said her husband, quote, isn't one of the most effective presidents of our lives in spite of his age, but because of it. Her words. The president's age and fitness is a key issue in this campaign. It keeps coming up. Why do you think voters should see it as an asset for the president?
Well, I'm older than he is, and I'm all for age. I can tell you that you do get wiser, and you do learn things. You learn from your mistakes. And I have seen him up close and personal, and he's fine. You know, he's perfectly suited to be president of the United States. I don't know, because of or in spite of the age, he's just fine. And, you know, he's someone we can work with, and that's what we need. We don't need a demagogue.
Over the years, I know, Jane, you've been an outspoken anti-war activist for many, many years, going back to the Vietnam War. A lot of us remember that. We've seen demonstrations over Israel's war in Gaza. We've seen those demonstrations at college campuses across the United States. How should President Biden try to reach out to voters, especially young people who are upset over his handling of this conflict?
I understand the anguish. I feel it myself, the anguish to see the deaths, children dying. It's a terrible thing to watch. It's a very complicated situation. I can't pretend that I understand it very well. I've been to Israel 6 times since the 1980s, and I love Israel. It was under very different leadership when I went over there. I miss the Israel that I fell in love with in the 1980s, frankly. It's complicated in terms of international diplomacy and all of that, and I think that President Biden is trying to protect Israel, be loyal to Israel, and at the same time demand a ceasefire, demand that the bombing stop, that the children stop being killed. I think he's doing both. But I understand the anguish of the protesters. I can't say that I know what he should do differently because I don't understand the situation well enough.
Jane Fonda, we always appreciate
All I
speaking
know
with
is
you. Go ahead.
Well, just one other thing. If the Orange Man wins next November, it's going to be much worse for Palestinians. I can say that.
Jane Fonda, thank you so much for joining us.
It's good to see you again.